Nanu Nanu. It is time for the exclusive film and video report. My introduction may have given it away. The show that we're going to discuss this week, Mork and Mindy.
Now, I'm assuming, when I was a little boy, I did this. Did you do this also? Did you used to go and greet people by saying Nanu, Nanu?
I said Nanu, Nanu. I even gave it's like the Vulcan salute, but it's sideways.
Yeah.
I even gave that as a handshake. Listen, I was so into this show, to my everlasting shame.
Yeah.
Because something happened. At some point, Robin Williams became very uncool. But I can tell you, in 1978, he was the coolest guy around, and I went so far as to have the red and black striped long-sleeve shirt. I had my mother buy me a shirt just like Mork.
Did you wear that to school?
I wore it to school with the rainbow suspenders, including
school.
the very same pins. Now, yes, they eventually came out with suspenders with those pins as part of an item for the show, but I actually sought out those specific pins.
It was a crescent moon pin.
And it was a hand. It was a glove, and I would go around and I got the coloring books. Anything Mork related, I got my hands on.
I tried so hard to get. I could probably find it now. I wanted to get one of that's the jumpsuit he wore.
Oh, you mean his space suit?
His space suit.
But I will say this in my defense, before people think like, "Wow, I've never heard of anybody being so into Mork." I was into Mork, I was into the Sweat Hogs, I was into Happy Days. I tried to dress like all of my favorite TV characters as a kid. My mother indulged me, which, by the way, was not the right thing to do. I even, in 1984, managed to get the Don Johnson look, despite the fact that I was in high school and, I was this pimply-faced kid wearing Don, and it
no
just
socks.
didn't work. No socks. I had the pastel shirt and the white blazer. Forget it.
Hence the career in college radio.
Hence the career in college. Career, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, Mork and Mindy debuts in 1978 with Robin Williams, who at that time was virtually unknown.
It's a spin-off character from Happy
Days, right, which led to this discussion in the first place.
And what's interesting about all this is that Robin Williams was taking classes in L.A. at Harvey Lembeck. Remember Harvey Lembeck?
Yes, of course, from the Beach Party movies. God bless Annette Funicello, who we just lost.
Yes, and Harvey Lembeck had this and he still does, teaches classes. His son, Michael Lembeck, who was a director for Friends.
Right.
And it was these weekly classes, and everyone was in the class. John Ritter, all these people. So, Robin Williams had auditioned for the role of Jack Tripper, lost it to his friend John Ritter.
I see.
And then he and Billy Crystal had auditioned. So a bunch of these guys had come in for Mork. And what's his name? Gary Marshall said, I saw a lot of guys for Mork. Billy Crystal auditioned, I think.
Right.
A lot. But he says Robin took the most chances. He did his audition he stood on his head.
Sure, I'm sure he went all out to get that role.
He did.
And we should mention that I believe he went to Juilliard and his roommate was Christopher Reeve.
Yes, his roommate was Christopher Reeve. He didn't finish Juilliard. Christopher had left, and he just felt he was not having a good time at Juilliard. He was getting constantly reprimanded, insulted for his work. And he said it's not fun anymore. And I think I don't know if it was he left on his own, because after the second year they would tell you whether or not you could stay.
Right.
But I don't think he wanted to be there.
So he leaves and goes to the West Coast
to do mime,
and essentially winds up on Happy Days.
Yeah.
This character Mork, if you remember the original Happy Days episode, he spoke in a high voice like this.
Yeah.
Which, as the series went on, it got into his normal speaking voice. But of course, we can't continue without mentioning that Robin Williams, his huge influence was Jonathan Winters, who just passed away yesterday. And you can see it in everything that Robin Williams does. In fact, Jonathan Winters would eventually become a cast member of the show, which we'll talk about in just a moment. But that first season, first you have the lovely Pam Dawber.
Who's the anchor of the show.
Right, and the anchor of my heart, James.
Really?
I was totally in love. See, I had this identification with Mork, but there was also this lust thing going on with Pam Dawber. I loved Pam Dawber.
Did you want to move to Boulder, Colorado?
I did. Boulder, Colorado seemed like it was the greatest place in the world. We'd all be driving around in Jeeps and going into these houses that looked like they came from Amityville. I loved the show. I loved the idea of the crazy guy upstairs, the hot chick downstairs, and they did have there was no sexual chemistry at first, but as the series went on, it became like a romance, which kind of was the death knell for for the show. But that first season, you had her grandmother and her father.
No, Conrad Janis played her father.
Played her father, who ran the music shop.
Yeah,
and it was a record store, but they also sold musical instruments as well. And he was a conductor, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm. And in the opening, you'd always see him conducting.
Right. And of course, Mork would report to Orson at the end of every episode and sum up what we had just seen.
Now that, of course, they tried to probably get Orson Welles, and he was probably too expensive.
Right.
I'm assuming
they couldn't get him, and so they just named the character after him. Yet another indignity that poor Orson Welles had to suffer.
No, that wasn't Gary Owens, was it? As Orson?
No. I don't know who did that, but I can tell you my favorite. In the first season anyway, my favorite secondary character on the show was Exodore. Do you remember that guy? He lived he was like an escapee from a mental asylum, and he had all these imaginary people. And Mork would go over to talk with him, and Exodore, he was always like really, really serious. He was very similar to, if anybody knows, Brother Theodore. His delivery was similar to that, and he would just stand there. And then he would get this stern look on his face, and he would turn to a chair, and there would be nobody on there. And he's like, "And you just sit there eating a sandwich?" And I can't explain to you how funny that was when I was a kid.
The show was so weird at times. It was surrealistic, but also it was a great launching pad for so many other great comics. Jay Thomas would join the cast. Paul Rubens made appearances.
Right, David Letterman
played,
of course.
From another planet, right?
And remember, Morgan Fairchild played, not a comedian, obviously, but Morgan Fairchild played Mindy's wealthy friend, who I think she tried to get something on with Mork, Tom Poston.
Oh yeah,
he played the landlord who wrote the greeting cards. He was the most miserable guy in the world, but he wrote like feel good greeting cards.
My favorite thing was always in the opening montage how Robin Williams would be sitting in the Jeep upside down.
Yes,
that was one of those things. I wanted to try that, and my parents would get angry at me.
By the way, and because on Orc you sit upside down.
I didn't. Oh yeah.
Yes. You see, you have to know these things. I had the guide to Mork and Mindy as a kid. I would read it. But so the first season, you have that wonderful theme song. Da, 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 da. You have the parents. You have her father, the grandmother.
Yeah.
You've got Exodore. Second season comes around, everybody's gone. You just got Mork and Mindy, and now you bring in Jay Thomas. I couldn't stand them. They came in. It was him and his sister, and they ran a pizza parlor.
That was annoying. I like Jay. He's a very good radio disc jockey.
He's wonderful on Sirius, but still, it just made no sense on the show. They brought the father back occasionally. And they changed the theme song. They made the theme song like a disco song, and it was so wonderful. The first season of the show is really all you need to see.
Yeah, it really.
Mork. By the way, I even had the trading cards. Now that I'm sitting here,
oh my god,
they had bubblegum cards. I
had the stickers. I had the Mork sticker. I'll never forget that.
Right, because Mork, there was this little African American kid that Mork would hang out with at the music store, and I remember him on the card. I must have got that card 100 times trying to get the entire series. No, not that card again.
I remember. I mean, sometimes it got a little, cheesy and all that. I think down the line into the season, of course, he and Mindy will get married. But
the first season's great. Second season, it starts to go off the rails.
But there'll be and then it starts getting these little name dropping things. Like, for example, I remember they started an episode with him and the kids, these children that live in the building, and he was like, "And if you're good, maybe I'll take you to see Popeye again next week." And it's
little jokes like that. And whenever they went to Orc, it was always kind of a letdown. And we have to get to Jonathan Winters. God love him. He just passed away. Comic icon. He appeared on the show not as Mirth at first.
He
was just another character.
And they liked him so.
What I remember about that episode, and it was a great episode, was that Robin Williams and Jonathan Winters, of course, Robin Williams was in hog heaven.
Yeah.
Here was his idol. Robin based his entire career on Jonathan Winters.
And what's cool about it is Robin openly admits it. He's like, I'm doing Jonathan Winters.
Of course.
He's like, I'm not being original.
He had a great tweet the other day or something from his website calling Jonathan Winters the comedy Buddha and long live Buddha. And it's one. I mean, I love Jonathan Winters just as much as anybody else, but he came on as a different character. And what I remember about that, and I was watching it with my dad at the time, that at some point they just went off script and they ad-libbed for about a good solid 6 minutes. And I remember Pam Dauber was just standing there. She had nothing to do. I mean, she was supposed to be in that scene.
Yeah.
And it just went off the rails. And they just ad-libbed for 6 minutes. The audience is up for grabs. And she's just standing there going, she's just laughing.
I know. I think when he would join the cast full time, it would get exciting. But at the same time, I felt very bad for the director and the producer, especially when it came to edit, because they were not looking at the clock or the script.
Right. But also there's a problem with this. I hate to bring it up. It's bad timing that we're talking about this. But the character of Mirth was just not a good fit for Jonathan Winters. It was, I'm sure, wonderful for him to be a part of the show.
The big egg.
And we always, yes, because you age backwards. Like the Curious Case of Benjamin Button, or
No, it was Mirth. I always thought it was Mirth. Mirth, right?
Mirth. And you age backwards, and that was the last season of the show. And by that time, I think a little Robin Williams goes a long way.
So the show's 78 to 82.
Yeah, and it lasted 4 years, and then eventually, I guess around that time, Robin Williams did Popeye, and then it was Moscow on the Hudson and World According to Garp, and those movies, which were great movies, by the way.
He co-starred in one of the greatest films with him and Walter Matthau.
Which movie is that?
It's I for some reason right now it escapes me. It's a brilliant little film with him and Walter Matthau. It's like 82 or 80.
I thought you were going to bring up Club Paradise or something.
I actually like Club Paradise, and of course but Pam Dauber. There was a really good TV movie done around like 8 years ago called Mork and Mindy Behind the Scenes.
I never saw that movie,
and it's interesting. Here's the irony: the guy that plays Mork is the guy who played Moe in the Three Stooges movie recently.
That guy gets a lot of work playing faded comedy stars.
But it really is good because it shows about this very good friendship that he has with Pam Dauber.
Right,
that they're very good friends, and that she's always there for. But also, it deals with the fact that he's too busy hanging out with John Belushi.
Oh,
and
yes,
everything
of course.
gets
There were drugs and everything.
He got, if I'm not mistaken, like he got like almost the night Belushi OD'd. He had.
I think he was with him.
He was with him, then he left,
and then he left, and then he was part of the investigation.
And like the police
that
come into
hurt the police. It had hurt his career for a little while.
I mean, there was talk about they didn't know what to do on the set of Mork and Mindy. The police took him away on for investigation,
But obviously those days are long since gone. I don't know what Robin Williams has done recently.
He's doing a sitcom.
I will say is he really?
He's going to be doing a new sitcom.
I will say this: a movie that he did that everyone hates is a movie I thought was hysterical.
Which one?
Death to Smoochie.
That's a weird one.
I loved that movie. You say this all the time. Weird does not equal bad.
But Catherine Keener's in it, and I find her sexy.
Well, there you go. And I find Pam Dauber sexy. And by the way, there was the Saturday morning show. We can't forget that. The Mork and Mindy, Laverne and Shirley Fonz Hour on ABC. Remember the Happy Days gang were in outer space. And Laverne and Shirley were in the Army, and Ron Palillo played a pig who was their sergeant. It made no sense that there was this anthropomorphic character who was ordering them around. And, of course, Mork and Mindy, although they were in high school, I think they aged them down for some reason.
I don't understand how that's even possible, but you know what? It's Saturday morning cartoons, which do not exist anymore, really.
That's true. As you and I both know. All right. That's it.
I miss the money.
For the exclusive film and video report, rest in peace, the great Jonathan Winters.
Thank you for everything, Jonathan.